Hello everyone. In this class, we'll try to understand about endogenous analgesic system. Learning objective of this class would be to describe the endogenous analgesic systems and understand the physiology of each and temperature as well. Recently, endogenous analgesic systems have been described. Prominent among them are neuronal analgesia, that is a descending pain inhibiting system, and opioid systems. Descending pain modulating systems. Neuronal analgesia systems were described following discovery of Raynaud that stimulation of ventrolateral, that is periaqueductal gray in rat produces profound analgesia. Subsequently, other areas were found to have analgesic properties. The important among them are nucleus rhammagnus and nucleus parogigantocellularis in medulla. Two descending analgesic systems have been described, that is raphe-spinal serotonergic pathway and ceruleospinal non-epinergic pathway. The descending raphe-spinal serotonergic pathway. This pathway originates from frontal cortex and hypothalamus and projects to the cells in the periaqueductal region of the midbrain. Fibers from PAG project to the nucleus rhammagnus and reticularis magnocellularis in medulla. From raphe nucleus, fibers descend down to the spinal cord via raphe-spinal pathway. Fibers of raphe-spinal pathway are serotonergic and they terminate on lamina 1, 2 and 5 of the dorsal horn. In the spinal cord, raphe-spinal fibers mainly terminate on the interneurons that by presynaptic mechanism inhibit the transmission of impulses from primary afferent fibers to the second order neurons. These interneurons release enkephalins as their neurotransmitter that inhibit release of substance P from the presynaptic ending. Thus, the transmission of impulse in the pain pathway in the dorsal horn is inhibited. This endogenous pain inhibiting pathway is activated by prolonged pain that chronically activates ascending pain pathways. Fibers from ascending pain pathway terminate on PAG and raphe nucleus that in turn activates descending endogenous analgesic system. Therefore, in chronic pain, intensity of pain automatically decreases, which is called as autoinhibition of pain. Then about descending ceruleospinal norepinenergic pathway. Cell bodies of descending noradrenergic fibers are located in the locus coeruleus of the dorsolateral pons. These neurons do not receive any inputs from PAG. The fibers project to the dorsal horn of the spinal cord to inhibit the transmission of nociceptive impulses from primary afferents. Endogenous opioid system. The morphine is a potent endogenous analgesic peptide. It acts at synapses of nociceptive pathways by binding to specific sites, the opiate receptors. The binding of morphine molecules to an opiate receptor decreases the nociceptive synaptic excitability. There are three types of classes of opiate receptors: mu, delta, and kappa. Morphine is a potent agonist of mu receptors. Opiates such as morphine acts pre and postsynaptically to inhibit the transmission of impulses from A delta and C fibers. Increased potassium conductance of postsynaptic membrane produces postsynaptic inhibition, and inhibition of the release of substance P from terminals of sensory neurons results in presynaptic inhibition. These effects are reversed by naloxone, the narcotic antagonist that binds to mu receptor. Acupuncture and acupressure produce analgesia by facilitating the release of endogenous opioids. There are many opioid peptides synthesized endogenously in our body, and these are collectively known as endorphins, that is endogenous morphine-like substances. The important endorphins like enkephalins, those are leukoenkephalins, metenkephalins, the beta endorphin, gamma endorphin, dynorphin, and alpha neoendorphins, etc. The endorphin receptors are particularly present in the spinal cord, PAG of the midbrain, and raphe nucleus in the medulla. The endorphins produce profound analgesia when they are secreted from the different parts of the brain in response to different stimuli. However, the major disadvantage of opioid is on chronic use they produce addiction and tolerance. So this is the descending analgesic pathway from the frontal cortex and from the hypothalamus. They are going to go to the periaqueductal gray matter from where encephalinergic neurons they descend to the nucleus raphe magnus. From nucleus raphe magnus serotonergic fibers they are going to relay in the spinal cord on the interneurons, and the interneurons they are going to presynaptically inhibit the primary afferent pain pathways by presynaptically inhibiting them and decreasing the secretion of substance P there. So that's how they are going to lead to presynaptic inhibition. The gate control theory of pain. According to this theory, pain can be modulated by peripheral mechanism, especially by gating the impulses in the spinal cord. This theory postulates that the collaterals from large myelinated afferent fibers associated with tactile sensibility produces presynaptic inhibition of A delta and C fibers in the dorsal horn of spinal cord. Thus, activity in the large afferent fibers regulate as a gate of the spinal cord the transmission of the impulses originating in the pain receptors. Acupuncture analgesia acts by gate control mechanism and release of endorphins. Stress induced analgesia. During stress, reaction of individual to pain is suppressed. This results in analgesia. Stress induced analgesia occurs by both opioid and non opioid mechanisms. Stress activates descending analgesic system. Specific pain syndromes. Hyperalgesia refers to the increased sensitivity and lowered threshold to the painful stimuli. Inflammation of the skin is among the common causes of hyperalgesia. Hypoalgesia or hypalgesia refers to the decreased sensitivity and raised threshold to the painful stimuli. Analgesia is complete loss of pain sensation. Analgesia may not be associated with loss of other sensation. Hyperpathia is a defect in the pain perception which is associated with an increased reaction to the pain stimulus once it is perceived. In general term, it is the exaggerated response to pain. However, in this condition, there are also increased reaction to the other stimuli. Allodynia is a state in which there is excessive response to even mild stimuli. For example, a stimulus like light, touch, which can be never painful, elicits pain. It is called as allodynia. While assessing pain of any cause, the following points are carefully noted and appropriately addressed by the physician. The mode and onset of the pain, the quality of the pain, the location of pain and referred pain if present, the intensity and duration of the pain, the provoking and relieving factors, and physiological and behavioral responses associated with the pain. Causalgia is a burning pain that usually develops following a traumatic peripheral nerve injury. The pain is continuous and often accompanied by hyperalgesia and allodynia. It is interesting to note that causalgia persists even after the complete recovery from nerve damage. The sympathetic fibers are proposed to be responsible for maintaining causalgia, as it is relieved by sympathectomy or by using adrenergic blockers. The noradrenergic sympathetic fibers overgrow in the dorsal root ganglia of sensory nerves from the injured area. Therefore, sympathetic discharge results in pain in the injured area. Inflammatory pain is the commonest pain, and inflammation occurs following injury. Mediators of inflammations like cytokines and substance P increase the sensitivity and lower the threshold for pain in the injured area. Thus, a minor painful stimulus elicits severe pain. These substances increase the pain perception. Neuropathic pain occurs when there is an injury to the nerve, and neuralgia is the general term for neuropathic pain. Trigeminal neuralgia is due to the herpes zoster, is an example for neuropathic pain. Neuropathic pain occurs in many nerve diseases, that is, can occur in diabetic neuropathy, nerve injury, different types of polyneuropathies, root irritation as it occurs in disc prolapse and spinal cord injury, and there are the other examples of neuropathic pain. Neuropathic pain is frequently associated with hyperesthesia, that is, increased cutaneous sensitivity, hyperalgesia, hyperpathia, and allodynia. Usually, neuropathic pain does not respond well to analgesic treatment. Epidural injection of mixture of analgesic and steroid is usually helpful. In severe cases, there is a nerve section, the section of the nerve that carries sensation from the site of injury. Uh, the dorsal root, the dorsal rhizotomy cutting the pain fibers in the dorsal root, or anterolateral chordotomy or spinothalamic tractectomy cutting the ascending fibers of spinothalamic tract, the spinal cord, are considered. Okay, so these are the modalities of the uh, treatment in severe cases. Tic dolorax is also known as trigeminal neuralgia. In this severe and stabbing type of acute facial pain that persists briefly, most patients develop this syndrome following compression of the trigeminal nerve roots. Thalamic syndrome. The patients with thalamic syndrome experience chronic, severe, and extremely unpleasant pain that occurs either spontaneously or in response to trivial stimulus. The pain is felt in the brain in the absence of any peripheral pathology. It occurs due to the ischemic or hemorrhagic lesions of posterior thalamic nuclei following obstruction of thalamogeniculate branch of the posterior cerebral artery. Pain is cured by surgical destruction of posterior thalamic nucleus by stereotaxic surgery. Teeth have many or plenty of receptors. Teeth are innervated by axons of maxillary and mandibular divisions of trigeminal nerve. The fibers include unmyelinated C fibers and myelinated A, delta, and B fibers. The fibers enter the tooth through the complex, through the root apex, branched within the pulp, and then terminate in the plexus of the pulp. Enamel and the cementum contain no nerve fibers. The pulp is protected and covered by enamel. Thus, exposure of pulp or pulp inflammation is painful. Toothache is caused by heat, cold, inflammation, and mechanical probing of the dental pulp. Itch is defined as unpleasant sensation that evokes the desire to scratch. This is the distinct sensory modality. It can be evoked by mechanical or chemical stimuli. In contrast, tickle is a pleasurable sensation. So receptors for these are the itch is produced by stimulation of the itch receptors that are endings of unmyelinated C fibers. These are not the same as C fibers that are responsible for pain. Itching can be produced by mechanical stimulation of the skin and by application of various chemical agents. Itching invariably occurs when plasma concentration bile salt is high. Histamine is the most important chemical agent that produces itching. Usually antihistaminics are prescribed to stop itching, though itching can occur without histamine. Kinins also produce severe itching. So the pathway for the transmission of these sensation, that is itch and tickle, is lateral spinothalamic tract. Temperature. The receptor for temperatures are two types. Okay, so they can be warmth receptors and cold receptors. Warmth receptors, they are going to respond maximally to the temperature above the body temperature, and cold receptors that respond maximally to the temperature below body temperature. Cold receptors respond to the temperature ranging from 10 to 40 degrees Celsius, and warm receptors respond to uh, in the range of 30 to 50 degrees Celsius. The sense organs are naked nerve endings here for the temperature. Three special sets of temperature receptors have been recently described: cold and menthol sensitive receptors 1, that is CMR1. These are the receptor for moderate cold. The VR1 responds to very high temperature, that is, there are also nociceptive thermoreceptors. VRL1 responds to moderate to high temperature. All these three sets of receptors, that is CMR1, VR1, VRL1, are ion channels and they belong to the transient receptor potential subfamily. Pathway for temperature is the afferents for cold are A delta and C fibers, and afferents for heat are C fibers. The temperature sensation is transmitted by lateral spinothalamic tract. So this is how I mean the cold temperature will be sensed between 10 to 40 degrees Celsius. The warmth will be 30 to 50 degrees Celsius, and if the temperature increases more than, so then it will be received by the pain receptors, nociceptive receptors. So this is in brief about uh, the analgesic system. Thank you.